Making another connection, and we're live. Hello, Ashley here for another episode of Come Alive with Ashley. I think that's what we're doing here anyway. I don't want to kill you is the thing. So, hello. If you are dropping in live, just say hello, even if you can't stay the whole time. It's always good to connect with you here. And if you're catching the replay, please do the same. Say hello. If you do watch the replay or catch the whole thing live, feel free to interact. I love interacting with you. So I just am grateful that you're here and listening. So if we don't know each other, my name is Ashley DePaulis, and I help high achievers who make doing the work or work in general the priority move from existing in their minds to coming fully alive in their bodies. When we are in our mind all the time, we tend to disconnect from our bodies and the experience that's happening there, when our experience is meant to be happening in and through our body. And that's why it is so important to talk about your emotions, because your emotions are energy in motion that want to move through you. You don't want to have them getting lodged and stuck in the body and carrying around that emotional weight that can turn into physical weight, that can turn into pain, it can turn into debt, it can turn into a lot of things. So I won't get into all that right now, but what we're going to be diving into today is that you can take action on right now. And if you want a deeper dive, we go into this more deeply inside my program, Vital Body, which I will mention later. But these tips that I'm going to share with you today are something you can take action on right away. So let's dive in, shall we? So we're going to be talking about how you can make space to process the charge, because that's all it is. All it is just an energy charge of negative emotions. Like I said, this is important because we don't want to dissociate from them, repress them, which is a norm in our society, because then that ends up showing up later in physical symptoms. So how can you make space for this when you're a high achiever who's very busy and doesn't have time to think and feel their way through life? Well, one thing that's important to know, so yesterday I came on and I shared 3 different ways that you can process negative emotions in public, because a lot of times we can be in meetings. It's a question I get asked often, like if I'm in public or in a meeting, doing my high achieving thing, how can I process these emotions that come up? So maybe you're triggered by something, and it's typically your ego that's triggered by something. So how can I shake it off, so to speak? So I shared 3 tips on how you can do that when you're in public without people noticing. And even if they did, who cares? So go check out that video if you want to know more about that. But I'm bringing it up because it's important to know that emotions are what makes us, 1, human, and 2, it's actually processed. Emotions are processed by our brain first, then logic. So we tend to be running through life using our intellect and our mind only, when we can be tapping into other areas of our superpowers, so to speak, that our society may not deem as important, but can actually facilitate your life in greater ways, like connecting you to your fullest potential, which I know that high achievers are super, into. They're achieving. There's different things I can get into here of why we're on the high achieving path. There's healthy ways that we are doing that, and there are unhealthy ways. But we're just going to stick with when negative emotions come up, how do you make time and space to be with them instead of repressing them and allowing that to turn into some kind of physical manifestation through our behaviors, through our beliefs, and through our physical body. So number one, know that it's okay to not be okay all the time. You know, we've been taught that we should not feel pain, or we don't need to feel pain. And if we do feel pain, what's the fastest way to get rid of it? And that's not really how we function as humans. We're meant to ebb and flow, have highs and lows. It's okay to not be okay all the time. And when you allow yourself that just permission, that's all it is permission to not be okay all the time, then that allows the space to have the feeling, the emotion that's coming up in your body, because it's just a sensation in the body that's coming up, to move through you, or for you to help facilitate it moving through your experience. So it's normal, you're normal, and the emotions that come up don't need to define you. A lot of times, so when I shared about, you know, your brain processes emotion first, then logic, a lot of times when we're not actually processing our emotion, it's still there. It doesn't mean it's gone. We end up making up a story about it. And then we carry around that story, and that story defines our life experience, and it defines how we make decisions and choices and so on and so forth. So realizing that your emotions don't mean something personal about you, like taking out the meaning of it being personal will just change your world. It reminds me of the book, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I got that right. And one of his 4 agreements is to not take things personally. So that's not just with other people, it's with ourselves as well. So the more that you can create space between you and what is coming up in your experience, then it's also going to allow it to move more quickly through you. You can think about emotions as weather, as a storm passing. I know, like, when we get into anxiety and depression, it's not always that simple, but for the sake of what we're talking about today, understanding that emotions moving in and through your body, in and through your experience, are just like weather, just like a storm that passes. And the more that we can connect our experience to nature and how nature works, because we are part of that, then it can give you a visual representation of it. It can make it more normalized versus the ways in which we have been conditioned to look at emotions and feelings coming up and internalizing them and making it mean something about us. So that is number one. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to tell you there. But just through this process, really being gentle with yourself, eating nourishing foods. Like, a lot of times when emotion comes up, since food tends to be a way in which people react versus responding to emotion, you can recognize what's going on, discern why it's happening for you, and choose to eat nourishing foods. And I'm not saying like you have to do this every time. It's okay if you don't choose nourishing foods all the time. But when you can do that, it's going to support you. So you're making the decision to support yourself through a process. Another great one is to get outdoors. The outdoors is going to, whether it's a walk or sitting in the grass or whatever that looks like for you, getting outdoors is going to help support you in shifting your energy. The next one is acceptance. So Eckhart Tolle says that when we are either in acceptance, enjoyment, or if we are not in acceptance, enjoyment, and enthusiasm, if we're not in one of those, then we're experiencing some level of suffering. And we may be struggling or may come across challenges, but we don't need to suffer through them. So when we can accept what is going on in our experience and that we may be experiencing negative emotions about it, then we can take a step of choosing anew in the next moment. You greet the emotion like, hey, sadness, or whatever you deem as negative, or grief. Same, different than sadness. Anger. We talked about anger on the #relatable podcast last week, so you can definitely go check out that episode. It's funny and super relatable, as always. And I share a few. If you ever want to know like all about me, check out that podcast. Not that I think you want to know all about me, but if you do, I share a lot there. So greet it. Greet the emotion. That's how you can accept it. You breathe with it. It's another way of accepting that it's in your experience right now. And allow yourself to be alone with it in the dark. Because since we're talking about negative emotions, we see that as darkness, and then the positive emotions as light. And we're always striving for the light, but we need both. They both serve a purpose. The darkness often always serves the light, and the light serves the darkness. So they work together very well. So allow yourself to be alone with it. And when you can be accepting of it by greeting it, by breathing with it and being alone with it, then it's going to support you in moving through that experience at a rate in which you want to, versus it keeps coming around and rearing its ugly head in all these different ways. So the more that you can pay attention to it as you would a child or a puppy or a dog, or other animal, then the more supportive it's going to be for you. And the more you can then shift in the next moment. So starting anew. Every moment can be a new beginning. It does not have to be like, you don't have to wait for the next day, or maybe you do. You don't have to wait for the next week or the next month. You can always start in the next moment. Because where your focus is where your energy is. So if your focus isn't in a place that you really desire it to be, and this is not about bypassing, again, accept it, greet it, all those things, but once you've been with it and you notice that your attention is just there because that's where it has been, when you can then shift it to something new, put your energy in a new place, changing your environment, using your body to support you through the process. Which brings me to the next one, number 3. So once you've greeted it, accepted it, all those steps I shared, you can choose to journal. So you can do what's called automatic writing, which is just free flow consciousness. Just start writing like, hey, I had this experience, what did I learn from it? And just like let it go. Or if you want to ask God or source, universe, like what is this lesson here to teach me? And just write from there. It can be really a great way to see your thoughts more clearly than having them jumbling and bouncing around like a ping pong ball in your mind. So you can try that. You can talk to a fellow human. So accountability is huge here. Make sure it's a human that you can trust with your experience, and somebody that's not gonna make it all about them or pull you into their stuff. So, because that's not what this is about. So it could be a friend, it could be a therapist, it could be a coach, it could be a mentor, whatever that looks like for you. So the last part of this for your accountability, getting your body involved, is changing your environment so that you feel supported. So a lot of times when we're sad or grieving, we tend to isolate. And, although it's a natural response and although it is warranted for a period of time that's needed, there comes a point where it's like, okay, I need to get out of this state. It served its purpose. So changing your environment can do that. So like I said, going outside, that can be changing your work environment. That can be, you know, if you're often feeling stressed around work, that can be, you know, any number of things. Just changing up your routine is huge. And getting your body involved in that as well. So when we're sad or grieving or having some negative emotion, we tend to be in postures that are more constrictive. And when we can change our posture, involve our body in the process, then we are embodying anew. So opening up the shoulders, opening the heart, breathing, because when we're got our head down, we're closing off our airway. When our head is down, our focus is down. When our eyes are looking all around, then our vision improves. We have a greater perspective. So those shifts, those little shifts, can change things up significantly for your energy and allowing space for your negative emotions to be processed. The last one is gratitude. So being grateful that you, one, can take the time and space to process negative emotions, and two, that it is a privilege, and two, gratitude for the darker side. Gratitude for the energy that's liberated in the process, because energy does become liberated when we allow ourselves to process emotion. And like I shared at the beginning, this liberated energy connects us to possibility. It connects us to our potential. And since you're a high achiever, you care about reaching your fullest potential while you're here. So anytime you can liberate that energy, be grateful for it. And be grateful for getting to know the specific part of you that needs attention. Usually it's your inner child, or an aspect of your inner child that needs attention. So giving that child attention like you would have wanted when you were a kid is huge, 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 guys. I cannot stress this enough. So the 4 that I went through for how you can give yourself space to process the charge of negative emotions. Number 1, know that everything doesn't have to be okay all the time. Number 2, acceptance. Greet it. Greet it with acceptance. Number 3, whether that's journaling, some sort of accountability measure, whether that's journaling, connecting with somebody else, or getting your body involved, those ways that I shared. And number 4 is gratitude. So I hope those supported you. Hello, Lisa. Good to see you. I'm glad you're here. So I hope those were very supportive for you, Lisa. I'm just wrapping up on this one, and it's really good and juicy with all kinds of wisdom nuggets. So feel free to watch the replay if you'd like. So that's what I got for you today. I do also want to share that I am in early bird enrollment for my 8-week program, Vital Body, which we take a deeper dive into all of this, we create more awareness around the communication of your body and your subtle bodies. We get into integration. So after we become aware, how do we integrate and actually use this in our life to support the beliefs and behaviors that we really want to be creating, and habits and mindsets and attitudes, all those things. How can we really create a life that we want to be having? And then lastly, we get into, the embodiment of it all. So we have to involve the body in the process if we really want to have transformation that sticks. So we use embodiment practices for that, and I teach you how to use these tools. You get to run with the tools, and these tools are always connected to shifting from your pain to your pleasure. So that starts on October 12th. It's funny that I'm like, when does it start? It starts October 12th. Early bird is through next Monday, September 21st. So the early bird includes epic bonuses like a discount on the price of admission or enrollment. Admission, like this is a concert. It can be like a concert though. And a bonus one-on-one session with me. And yeah, we will have a special guest as part of the program too. So it's really cool. If you want to know more, you can head to the link in my bio and fill out an application, or if you have questions and just want to talk about it, you can send me a DM or drop your favorite emoji below and I will reach out with some more details. So thanks for being with me today. I will talk to you soon. Bye for now.